my bullet that can sink deep. By the time she knows what's happened, there'll be someone else who needs me. 'Cause time keeps dragging on, and on, and on, and on. Time keeps dragging on. Time keeps dragging on. I've got time to think about my past as I dodge between the bullets. And my life was so exciting before I got this way. And how long ago it was now I never can explain. By the clock that's on the tower, or the one that's in my brain. And I'm there before you know it, I'll be gone before you see me. And I'd like to get to know you, but you're talking much too slowly. And I know you want to thank me, but I never stick around. 'Cause time keeps dragging.
Justice for all.
Our first order of business is to approve the minutes of the January 10, 2011 meeting.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes of the January 10 meeting are approved. Next, we have the minutes of the January 10 work session.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Darrell, seconded by Charlie. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Those minutes are approved. Then we have the non-public minutes of our January 10 meeting.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Darrell, seconded by Charlie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those minutes are approved. And finally, we have the minutes of the budget work session, January 13, 2011.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Darrell, seconded by Charlie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those minutes are approved. Announcements. The Select Board will meet on the following dates. Regular meetings at 6 p.m. on Monday, February 14th and February 28th, 2011. Work review sessions prior to the regular meetings will start at 5 p.m. Town budget hearing will be held on Thursday, January 27th, 2011 at 6 p.m. There will be a work session meeting, safety building review at 5:30 p.m. on Monday, January 31st, 2011. There will be a second public hearing on the proposed Police and Fire Department public safety buildings on Monday, February 7th, 2011 at 5 p.m. There will also be 2 more budget hearings scheduled on an if-needed basis on February 3, 2011 and February 10, 2011. Petitioned warrant articles will be read at the February 3, 2011 public hearing. All of the above meetings will be held at the Town Hall unless otherwise posted. The Plymouth School District budget hearing will be held at 7 p.m. on Monday, February 7th, 2011 at the elementary school. The Pemmy Baker School District meeting will be held at 6:30 p.m. on February 10, 2011 at the Plymouth Regional High School. Weather observations for the month of December are available in the Town Hall. Updates. I would like to take this opportunity to announce the non-profit funds that have been granted by the Select Board, voted by the Select Board. And I'll preface that by saying that we adopted all of the recommendations of the nonprofit committee, which did an extraordinarily thorough job in reviewing the requests for funding by the nonprofit agencies in town. The American Red Cross will receive, the amount granted was $1,000. For Katie, Communities for Alcohol and Drug-Free Youth, $7,000. For Genesis Behavioral Health, $7,800. Grafton County Senior Citizens Council, $15,000. Pemmy Baker Home Health and Hospice, $17,500. Pemmy Bridge House, $7,500. Pemmy Youth Center, $3,500. The Plymouth Regional Clinic, $2,000. Tri-County Community Action, $5,000. Voices Against Violence, $4,700. And CASA, which is the Court-Appointed Special Advocates for Children, $1,000, for a total amount of $72,000. All right, we have no visitors tonight. We do have a public hearing. It will start at 6:30. But since we are not at that time yet, I would like to go on with Chairman's comments. Draft copies of the fiscal year 11-12 budget will be available after 10 a.m. on Wednesday, January 26, 2011, at the Town Hall. I would like to also comment and congratulate our Highway Department for the job that they've been doing in dealing with snow removal after the incredible series of storms we've had so far this winter. I think they've been not only efficient but very quick to get the snow off the roads and sidewalks, and I'd like to thank Peter Furmanek and his crew for the job well done. I also have a courtesy announcement. This concerns a required landlord's agent form. Effective January 1st, 2011, RSA 540:1-B of New Hampshire state law requires landlords to file a statement with the town or city clerk of the municipality in which their property is located that provides the name, address, and telephone number of a person within the state who is authorized to accept service of process for any legal proceedings concerning that property. If you are the owner of rental property in the town of Plymouth, you may be required to designate an agent for service and file a landlord's agent form with the office of the town clerk. For more information, you can visit the landlord agent form page of the Plymouth website, and you can also get questions answered at the town clerk's office. We have no purchase orders tonight. Committee reports. Charlie?
I didn't, I have nothing to report.
Which?
A task force at the college today, and there was a lot of good ideas put out. The main topic of the meeting was the number of students off campus, and one of the landlords, Doug McLean, had a very impressive layout of the residents and of the students living off campus, and it showed basically the students outnumber the residents by about 3 to 1. So that's one of the reasons. So a lot of the issues and problems we're having in the neighborhood. The college is, of course, growing, and not so much the number of students enrolling in their freshman classes, but they're doing a fabulous job of retention, which is great. They're very successful, and in this economy, that's good. That was one of the topics. Another topics we talked about, there was some input on the impact to the community with the residents. They have a lot of good ideas, some great ideas, and I think as things get ironed out, nothing but good's going to come out of this committee. I mean, it's should be meeting again in another 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So.
3 to 1 in the downtown area?
No, it's in the immediate walking distance. The immediate walking distance of campus. The village, basically the village. So, yeah.
Did he give you a number? 1,700 or something? I think he
Yeah, off campus. Yeah,
off campus.
off campus.
Nothing to report from me.
Report. All right. Moving on, other business. Attorney Peter Epstein, discuss and sign agreement regarding the Time Warner contract. Paul?
Madam Chair, each of you should have
Any clue if his travel time would count for services actually rendered?
I'm sure. I think most of it would be less than he's not planning on doing any travel. He did meet with a subcommittee. At that time, they indicated that they wouldn't really need to travel. So the decision that we have before us, and the university is going through a similar task, and they also met with Attorney Epstein that day at Reader's Valley in Charlie.
Yeah.
And it comes down to whether we want to take on Time Warner ourselves or use Attorney Epstein. There's also a chance that Time Warner owes us some fees because of the trunk line running down Langdon Street and up some of the other side roads that cut through campus. And that might have been a fee owed to the town for the last 10 years. That was never collected by the town.
When's this contract expire?
2015.
In March or June? It's still got time. But
Well, I don't know, Charlie, because I think if you think back to that meeting that we had,
And we already received a letter from Time Warner.
you know,
You're supposed to start your negotiations 2.5 to 3 years before.
there's a lot of issues with it that we have to get resolved.
I move that we approve the retention of Attorney Peter Epstein through this agreement.
Second.
it's been moved by Darrell, seconded by Charlie. Any further discussion? Butch, any questions about it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, just going to need one sign copy.
Pass that down to
Says everybody.
have a few minutes before the public hearing will begin. Is there time to do non-public? I'd just
I believe so.
assume
We could go across the hall.
we could move across the hall.
Just a quick union update.
Okay.
I move we go into non-public in accordance with RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, personnel union.
Second.
Been moved by Darrell, seconded by Butch. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Charlie?
Aye.
We will return for the 6:30 public hearing. It is 6:30. I'll call this public hearing to order. This concerns the proposed police and fire safety buildings, and I would just like to begin the hearing by acknowledging the Public Safety Building Committee for their hard work. Tim Keep, who chaired the committee, Mary Crowley, who was his assistant chair, Peter Bolton, Art Cody, John Kelly, Dick Piper, and Selectmen Butch Cushing and Ray Gosney all put just an incredible, exhaustive effort into looking into every building site and possibility that had been recommended by the public or that they had come up with on their own. And I think anyone who here has listened to their presentations and into their meetings would agree that they really deserve kudos for all of their hard work. So thank you very much for all of your work. And just to start off this meeting, Tim, would you like to come forward and give us...
I think we've collectively decided that we will not do again the presentation that we did a few weeks back, which was sort of the historical overview of how the committee got from its beginning work in May to its ending work fairly recently, where we turned over to the Select Board our set of recommendations were essentially 6 options on 2 different sites. And I think we're going to move fairly quickly into where you've now taken it as a Select Board, working with your architects and design people in terms of what they've come forward with a proposal. And then we to answer any questions that may come up in terms of what our work entailed, but I think we're ready to take it to the next level. So unless there was something specific you wanted beyond that, I think that's where we are this evening. I would direct people to the town's website, where you will find the video presentation that we did do as a committee, that I did for the committee a few weeks back. And it gives you a sort of a pictorial view of our history and how we got to where we are today, the 30-plus sites that we reviewed in the course of our almost 1 year, or pretty darn close to a year of work. So you're welcome to take a look at that if you'd like. And if you're interested, we could always do that again at a subsequent public hearing.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you.
And just to let everybody know, after receiving the recommendations of the committee, the Select Board decided to go ahead and ask Bonnet, Page and Stone and DGA, who were the same people that brought us to town meeting last year with the proposal. We asked them to look at what we could do using the existing fire department site at 42 Highland Street and a site adjacent to the existing police department on North Main Street. So at this time, I'd like to invite Kelly Davis and Keith McVeigh to come up and present what they have thus far developed for us.
What I'd like to do is, hi, my name is Kelly Davis. I'm an architect from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. As was said last year, we did bring a proposal to town warrant article for buildings on the Route 3 site. This year, we're bringing forward a proposal for a building on the Route 3 site, which is the police station, and to put a building on the 42 Highland Street site to actually tear down the existing fire station and build a new one in its place. And I'm going to show you, I'll just run through real quick. Did you guys, you still have the handout that I gave you? So okay. Do we know the square footage? It's about
10,000.
10,000? Yeah, okay. Thanks, Chief. So the building is proposed to be adjacent to the existing police station. And the way the building is laid out is we have a core admin lobby area with access, limited access to some meeting space. We have the general administrative area, which is office space and sort of the workspace for the officers. We have some support space for the officers along with evidence storage. And we have essentially 5 holding cells and a secure sally port. So essentially from about here that way is most of your secured space, and as well there is some limited access here. Actually, most of the police station is limited access. Really, the public gets to come in to the lobby area, and then they are brought in depending on who they're talking to. And is this in the way for anybody? So again, we have 4-car sally port for the police vehicles. We have a little bit of limited evidence storage and support for the vehicles here. Again, the holding cells, the backup for the officers, the admin areas, and some general administrative space. And that's what it looks like. It's 1 story. It's mostly, it's half block and half stud construction with some cementitious siding. And I don't know, Keith, you want to get into the materials a little bit later when you talk money? Yes. Okay. The fire station at Highland Avenue, the existing footprint is approximately 5,300 square feet. And we're proposing a building that is about 8,000 square feet on the footprint. So we're adding about 2,800 square feet on the first level, and then I'll show you the second level in a minute. The actual line of the front of the building here this has pretty much remained the same as the existing footprint, and we've expanded this here in front and a little bit of circulation and admin here, and I'll describe how the building works. As you can tell in the green, it's mostly apparatus space for equipment. And we had a list of equipment from the fire department, and to make sure that it all fit. We have a very small lobby area. We have some support spaces for these spaces here in the lighter pink shade are support spaces for the apparatus. And the yellow is the circulation. So we have a small corridor here with an elevator and a stair on either side. Upstairs is support spaces for the firefighters. We have 4 bunk rooms. We have a couple of locker rooms. We have a meeting training room and an emergency operations center room. We have a few offices, 3 offices here, one administrative, the chief and the deputy chief. We have a day room, kitchen, a duty room where firefighters write reports, and we have a physical fitness room. And we have a space for the fire marshal, essentially code review, plan review type space, mechanical rooms, and some incidental dead file storage. This is our rendition of the building. It's block and brick. It's flat roofed. It's got a very highly efficient building envelope. I think one of the things that we're trying to do with both buildings is make them as efficient as we can and to use lots of insulation and materials that will help and try to reduce the operating costs. A little bit higher efficiency on your mechanical systems, controls on your lights, things like that. Some storefront systems. This is sort of designates the front lobby entry. And that's about it.
The total square footage of that proposed fire station?
It's going to be a little bit under 17,000 right now. So I think Casino has 52 or something like that. So it's about 3 times the size of the existing building. It's a very tight urban site. We think this is has an urban look to it. We are building this for the 50, 75-year longevity. It's going to be some very strong and materials that in today's marketplace, everybody is very conscientious about materials and what's going into your building products, and so we're looking to be as environmentally friendly as we can, and I'll just leave it at that. But any questions? Yes, sir.
Did I understand this to be a complete demolition of the existing facility?
Yes.
And a complete rebuild?
Yes. The existing facility was built, I believe, in 1968. And that would make it about 43 years old. And there's just, we felt that we would get more efficiencies in the long term of the life of the new station with its operating process. We weren't using old systems, like uninsulated block walls, for instance, or things that just didn't make sense to us. I think cost-wise, if you look at the initial cost, yes, and then you look at, okay, what's this going to be to operate over the life of the building? And we felt that the town would save money in the long run. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I noticed the existing fire station has drainage issues, and I agree with taking out the old building in plus the floor, because I think you need to do low-grade work. My thought is there anything in the plans for a heated floor and a heated ramp outside the building, because your limited space of snow removal and the fact that when you need to move the apparatus out in emergency, ice and snow is not one of those things that helps your operation. And I notice a lot of departments put heated ramps and heated floor systems in.
Yes, radiant slabs are used in fire stations and other buildings. One of the nice things about this, I believe, is that we have a lot of solar south exposure in front of all the doors. And again, we're not going to get a lot of snow off the roof in front of the building. I would agree, and it's, I'm not sure if, Keith, if we put a radiant slab in.
We haven't yet.
We don't have a radiant slab in it. That's going to be up to Casino if he wants to trade off a few things to get a radiant slab in there. It's great for the firefighters. It keeps your heat within the first 8 to 10 feet of the space, so it could work very well to do a heat slab.
Well, I'll take the experience of the church building next door. That was a $14,000 option, which we passed over the cost. We have passed through, added zero to that, $140,000 of maintenance fee associated with not having the sidewalk and ramp and stairs and the public access in for a $14,000 item. I know the initial buy-in cost is subject to scrutiny, and we're all concerned about it, but the long-term maintainability of a piece of essential element at the time of construction, obviously, next door wish they had always put it in. We've suffered it since 1985. So between any public safety building, added on to an existing is subject to being cost effective. But to element that we are going to, I hope, take up that concrete out.
Oh, yeah.
Out.
It's all going.
Because the under drainage system was terrible. And to not take something that you need to put in at the point of construction for the amount of money, and I don't know what that size building would take as far as a radiant heat system, but
it's about 5,000 square feet with slabs for the.
You don't have to heat the world now. There's a lot of businesses that are heating their sidewalks and everything up to 80 degrees. All you need to do is heat it to 40, and you can shut it off when you don't need it.
Usually you bring the slab up to temperature at the beginning of the heating system, and it stays at a 50-degree temperature until the chief wants it up. But usually it's warm during the entire winter.
Anyway, that's, I think both police and fire, that's not an accessory, that's the mission essential component to the usability and response time and safety of the operation.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So I'm struck by the size of the lobby, or the lack of size of the lobby for the proposed fire station. And I don't quite understand how the public gets access to this building, whether that you get access to the rest of the building by way of the admin space in the lower level, or whether you can walk in and go to the elevator and go upstairs and talk to the chief.
You can't really get past the lobby. Unless you're buzzed in.
So manpower-wise, we're looking at a person at the admin spot 24 hours a day.
The downstairs admin
Yes.
spot? The downstairs admin spot is for personnel to come down primarily on the weekends to write out fire permits or other things that might be needed. Mostly during the day. I'm not sure how Casino's going to operate the station, whether the door will be unlocked and they're expecting people, because yes, you're right, most people are going to be coming upstairs. They're going to, for plan reviews or the fire marshal or to see the chief or the deputy chief. I'm not sure operationally how it will work, but there's very limited space on this level for admin. The primary goal for this downstairs has all to do with apparatus and support spaces for the apparatus. If it's determined that we need a larger lobby, I suppose we could I think the lobby's sufficient, and I think there's a toilet in there for people, for the public to use. And I would imagine there's going to be some sort of video, some way so somebody can tell who's down in the lobby and to talk to them and come down and service them. So that's how we saw it.
So just as, being a person who operates a business on 2 levels, I know that there's gigantic duplication of effort. And I wonder why you would ever have the need to have manpower on two levels when you could actually bring people right in and let them go upstairs one way or the other. Close access to the public for all the operational parts, cut down on the need for, make the toilet accessible for the firefighters. I don't think the public needs to come in to use the toilet. They can go upstairs if they have to, and make that entrance space basically accessible to the elevator or the stairway, so people can go in. Eliminate the need to have somebody downstairs, especially to control access to the building. Just an idea, okay?
Chief, do you want to talk to that? Because I'm not sure how you want.
Yeah. Steve, we never intended on anybody being in that office 24/7. Mm-hmm. On the weekends, they come into a security area and buzz, and then they would be one of the firefighters that's working, if they're there, if they're not on a call, would come down and assist them. Once they're out, there's ways that the front door can be secured on the activation of the tow, and then when they come back in, they unlock it so that people can get in that space. Mm-hmm. There are ways to do it. We do not intend on having duplication there. And Monday through Friday, people would come in securely and come up through to see myself or the secretary or put it that way. Do business that way.
I'm sure it can be done. I don't want to get in a dialogue here, but I'm sure it can be done. But I'm not sure why you would want to. I mean, because you got all this equipment, cameras, buzzers, all that stuff. I think it's an imposition to the public, and it's an imposition to everybody else, because that's your door also for your firefighters, right? Coming in off the street, or am I wrong?
No,
The entrance is down a little further for them for a call.
Where is that?
We have one here in ambulance, which is accesses this parking lot. We have one here. We also, for them to get into the gear storage. And we also have one on the other side of the apparatus bay. Again, it's going to have to be operationally how the chief sees the building being used. I think, to have an elevator accessed in the public lobby, I just see that as a breach. I'll do what they want. I think it's a good suggestion. I agree with you, but follow how the chief wants to make it work.
Go ahead.
Conceptually, I agree with the plan as laid out, making the whole building secure. I think that's particularly with the type of apparatus and equipment that you don't want ever to be compromised surreptitiously or otherwise. It should be a secure building. My question, though, is what kind of a construction timeline do you associate, starting with demolition to build out and reoccupancy?
We feel that it's in the 10 to 12 month time period. So I think that the casino will have to find a place to go for 12 months. Once he's in that temporary location, we will come in and basically demolish everything that's there and build it. Get it done as quickly as we can. Usually within a 9 to 11 months building, but there's a demo and stuff like that. Yes, sir.
Is that cost included in the estimated cost of construction? Relocation of existing services?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Can I jump in? If we're gonna go, because I'm Keith McVeigh, I'm Vice President of Bonnet Page and Stone. I have to sit in.
I want to hear this.
And, yes, those costs are in with, we're putting through some ideas now of how to best accommodate the fire department during that time. Paul, I assume you don't mind me shooting the breeze about some of those things. Chief, you had a good suggestion about possibly utilizing a portion of your building. If we were to construct the PD first, you would vacate your building and utilize a portion of that existing building for administrative and ambulance service. And then the question from there is where to locate apparatus, larger apparatus. Whether that would be, I heard talk about DPW and like that. But those are some of the things we've been thinking about in that area.
Paul, did you want a full rundown of costs, or what did you want Keith tonight?
I was going to run through what we've been up to, if that's okay. With you guys.
Yep.
We've been working with Kelly's firm and coming along, catching up with, as he's drawing these and catching up with costs. Our real issue was, or the concern at hand was, what's the difference if we're putting a fire department where it exists today and then a smaller PD? How are we affecting the budget? So we ran some numbers on this fire department here, and using some of the costs that we put together last year for soft cost and relocation and things of that nature to work up soft costs, we have found that the two dovetail nice together, and that there is actually a pretty significant savings going from last year's plan to the current plan. From there, I think our next task is I need to firm up some numbers on the PD. You've got some great suggestions on the heated slabs. I think that's next step for us is the fear about where are we with separating out those buildings, and if in fact it is the same price or less expensive, how do we want to treat those buildings, and have some of those conversations in the very near future about radiant slabs. I agree with you. That's not only is it an efficient way to heat it, but you end up with a slab either here or in the PD. You end up in the salad port area where you get the potential for issues as you get a prisoner from there into the processing area. It's nice to have the radiant heat and dry that area and not have ice. I know, especially on a new concrete slab, that ice can sit on top and get really slippery, and the radiant heat would take care of that. From where we are now, we've got a relatively good bunch of information on the fire department. We're currently working on this option here and spending a lot of time finalizing site numbers and options. So I think in the end, we're going to come out with a really well-organized project for significant dollars less as compared to last year. Going from there, pending a successful vote, Kelly would be finishing up the drawings and going to working drawings, all the while working with the staff in town here. And then, once that's met, we're off to bid and bidding the project and organizing the next phase, which would be the construction end of it. And that's where we get into really finalizing that scope of shuffling departments in that area. That's an update on cost-wise. You want to? Yes, sir.
So can we go back to the fire department?
Sure can.
So, I mean, I'm assuming now, kind of coming to this late, but that's my problem, not necessarily yours. But the lot line is actually shown on that plan, right? So, and we were very close to it.
So I assume
Yes.
that the control on the shape of the building is defined by the lot line and causes, and the program needs of the building, and the necessary parking, all cause this to be that shape. Am I right?
The program of the building was not driven by the lot size. That was something that we worked with the department and just creating the spaces they needed, the square footages, if that's what you're looking for.
Well, what I'm getting at is, I'm sorry, I don't want to lead the question here, but what I'm getting at is that, you know, you have, behind that building on somebody else's land, is the opportunity to make this a rectangular building. Which seems to me as though it's always less expensive and better in terms of energy usage, and I wonder, you know, whether this will not necessarily be a matter of taking this, it's a matter of a lot line adjustment, it seems to me, with the abutter next door.
Coming back here, and you're
coming
thinking
back,
of
right.
squaring
Right.
this off.
Right.
That was, we inquired pretty deeply with all of the people on that report.
Right.
And they just don't want to.
Nobody's interested in
no.
lot line adjustment?
They didn't want to have anything to do with it. They just leave us alone. They could not have been clearer.
Steve, you know, essentially, if Keith puts up the perspective, it's a shoebox shape on one side and a square on the other.
Yeah.
So those are very efficient shapes. And we were able to meet the program needs. And you're right, that the shape of the lot, the street, the requirement for the front apron to bring apparatus out onto where the parking's going to go, every building is designed for the site.
I think the short answer is that the shape of the site, the constrictions of the site, did not cause a need to eliminate program.
No.
I think you're meeting the program here with this job.
The building, the big apparatus bay on the left is essentially where most of the existing building lives, like in this space right here. And we come closer to the large asphalt parking area and brought this piece forward. It's a smaller apron here, but this is where we have emergency vehicles and stuff. Smaller vehicles. So I think, you know.
So just stating my preference, I would rather see a building where you can plow across the face of it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I got you. So this offends you, right?
Yeah, well, you know, it's not totally, I mean, it's not aesthetically offensive, but it isn't efficient in the Northeast for snow removal, for instance, and for visibility and other things. It seems like that, I mean, your left turn out of that first bay is going to be maybe a little tricky. I'm sure it's doable, and depends on which vehicle is there.
Well, again, we have a pretty deep apron.
I know.
So they'll be.
You're okay, but I do think that we're having I'll take Mary's word for it that it's impossible. But I'm going to check on it. But I'm going to check on it.
It was pretty thoroughly questioned and.
Right.
So it
depends on what question is asked and what and what possibilities are out there.
Actually, we were told, all right, to stop looking because get out of here.
Right.
The towns were told they weren't interested. Period. We stopped.
We were making nuisances of ourselves.
Well, all right. So I can do nuisances myself.
Yes, sir.
I guess the question that Steve posed kind of jarred something in my mind. I would assume that they're going to take and survey that entire lot before they build on it. I mean, we're putting on a huge building on a lot. We want to make sure the lines are where they belong. There's a possibility over the years that some of those lines have been moved around a little bit. You don't know unless you resurvey the lot before you start building.
Even more critical with the site that you're really maximizing that site.
Right.
So,
I would assume that to begin with. So maybe Who knows, Steve, maybe you...
Well, my other question has to do with the use of volunteer manpower in this facility, and specifically in the upstairs. What do I see there? Do I see student apartments there, or usage of
Bunk rooms.
You see bunk rooms. So these are bunk rooms for anybody. Nothing like a trade-off situation where we could utilize. If we could trade student housing for volunteerism and get a win-win out of it. That's not in the plan here. It's not correct. Not anticipated.
Correct.
So can you tell me why it wasn't, and whether that we've been through all that already and it's impossible, or what is that? What are all those?
You want to swap existing student housing for the volunteer firefighters, or no? You want to swap
Encourage students to be
volunteer firefighters
by offering them housing in the firehouse, is I
Right.
think what I hear you
Yes,
saying.
exactly.
I would think that you would be the person.
We have some of the students that are volunteer firefighters, call men, as we call them. And some of them do actually hang out through the night and catch rides. But it's actually formalized in a program like that. We have discussed it, and it's something that's not out of the question, but right now we don't discuss it because we don't have any place to give them permanent housing.
I guess what Steve's asking is, would you have space to give them permanent housing with this plan?
Yeah.
That's what I hear you asking.
That's my question, as to whether or not, the plan shows
$4
that possibility and I don't know. I do know. I think there are other, at least fire departments that have that kind of arrangement. Some in other university towns around.
They have what they call a live-in program.
Live-in programs, exactly. So that was my question. Are we taking advantage of that as a possibility and utilizing that?
I think that's a great idea, Steve. Usually what we do is when we design the bunk rooms, we put in some lockers, and we might have 4 sets of lockers because there's sort of a rotation that goes in and out of these bunk rooms. So they never really belong to one firefighter. They're sort of multi-use, so that depending on shifts and rotations and whoever is on gets to use one room. So it never really belongs to one firefighter.
Right.
So you could have 4 shifts in 4 bunk rooms. I mean, it could accommodate 16 men over the course of the month.
Coming back to the footprint, relative to the town ordinance that governs setbacks of buildings in various sectors of the town, does this have accommodation for setbacks, or are setbacks being waived so that you can build literally up to the property line?
A little of both. We are over some of the setback lines, primarily on the rear, and a little bit of this here and some here.
It would certainly be my recommendation to the select board to waive the setback requirements on those 2 sides of the building.
Okay. Usually, community towns.
That's a given, I think.
The plan has already discussed that with him. Right.
Okay. Thank you. Yep, we have. Obviously, we want to be as friendly and as community-based as possible, and don't want to feel like somebody's feeling like we're pushing ourselves right into their face. We want to keep some buffer. It's just good urban design. So.
Where is that back wall relative to where the current back wall is?
This corner right here is about the same as the outside corner. There's a tower right here.
Yeah.
So that tower sits here, and so I would say that the back line comes like here. So we're actually infilling quite a bit in the back.
I see.
That's where it calls for, yeah.
Mary, who owns Edmonds Court now? Do you know?
It's mostly still property management.
In other words, the residents are college students, is that what we're saying, or not?
Presuming that's who he's leasing to. I don't know that for certain, but that's my presumption.
The reason for the question is if there's college students there, I don't think they're gonna mind if it's a few feet closer to the house than not. That's the only reason I asked the question.
Well, Steve's point is an accurate one. There really isn't much in the first, 15 or 20 feet beyond that building. There's really not much that's functioning space at this moment.
Also, that sort of trapezoid shape or whatever in the back piece of the main apparatus bay, that's one story. So so we're,
It's a low roof.
yeah, so that's all roof, and we're so that sort of brings us, it's not oppressive, big two-story back wall like that. Any other questions or concerns? Cost.
That's what I thought you had to tell us.
You didn't disappoint. I thought you were gonna let me get out of here.
Oh.
We, as I said, we're preliminary. We've got soup to nuts, putting together the owner's side of the budget, equipment and architectural fees and like that. We're working on site work of finalizing the police department's number. We're currently sitting around 6.5, compared to last year's 7.3 almost. So we're around 800 ahead of that. I have a feeling that I'm hoping to work on some site work numbers and help bring the total budget down. I have a suspicion that I may have been a little too optimistic on some of the PD numbers. So what I'm shooting for is a blend and to hang right around where that is.
What about the fire department only?
Fire department only, construction costs.
That would
Well,
include
hold on.
staging as well? Or-
Yeah, let me give you a fire department, rough number for fire only, 3.65.
That's inclusive of staging and everything else.
Furniture.
Tearing down the old building. the whole
Yeah.
thing.
And that's a preliminary number that needs to be kind of shaken out with the team.
So, do I do the math like 2.7 or something for the? how do I-
Yeah, you lose some efficiencies when you break them apart, but you're roughly right there.
So what are the efficiencies that you get by doing the two projects together?
Some are easy. When we talk about staging those and saving money with possibly relocating the fire department in the current PD. Others are efficiencies of scale and bidding, of having the two projects running together and the attractiveness for that rare pleasure in the construction business for a subcontractor to get in on a project that's not only 9 months, but 2 consecutive projects. I think there's some economies of bidding that can be accomplished there.
So would you see this as like a 2-year project, basically,
It's probably backhoe to the last key given out, I bet is 20 months. I don't think it would see 2 years. 19, 20 months.
Do we,
You run them simultaneously or separately?
Separately.
It went separately. Simultaneously.
And that's what we're studying now is what are the benefits of running them simultaneously, running them back to back.
Meaning you don't have to stage equipment, you just take it from one point to the other,
Right.
which is only a few miles away.
Yeah, I think in the end, the things you can't figure out are what those bidding economies are gonna be. That's kind of a philosophical item. But I think in the end, it's, as we study the actions of the departments and what works best also for their services during that period, I think that's gonna weigh heavy in that decision.
And that soft cost for both buildings was the 6 point whatever it was.
Yes.
Includes everything.
That
Soft
was
cost.
two amounts.
Keith, I think Charlie's
Oh,
got
I'm
a
sorry.
question.
Have you come up with a number for the police department only?
PD only, I have a number, and again, the math doesn't work when you blend them.
No.
But for PD only, we had 2.860.
Thank you.
Again, the fire was 3.628.
So how much is, I'm sorry. Bill, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm behind you, so I'll let you go.
I got two questions, suppose you can answer them in whatever order you wish, but that's my point. The fire station concept plan that you showed earlier, I didn't comment to. I did speak to the architect before the meeting began, and one of the concerns I expressed was the fact that it's spread out over a very large footprint. And from an operational cost standpoint over the long term and maintenance, that strikes me as being a more costly proposition than if it were to have been a two-story structure with the administrative space over the operating area on the first floor.
My answer to you, though, Bill, was that I deferred to the way the police chief operates his department. So that was one of the, I don't know if you want to talk about one versus two, but
He and I have talked about that before.
What was the answer, Bill? I didn't hear it.
He could make it work if he was told to work with that kind of design.
Thank you.
Am I being fair to you, Steve?
yes, sir.
Thank you.
From a cost standpoint, this building is a little bit of a tough one, because typically in a rule of thumb, we'll say 10,000 square feet is about where you go. You get that economy of scale where you say this doesn't make any sense anymore. Let's do that, and buy an elevator and a couple sets of stairs, and save some on the foundation and some on the site work. The problem is that this building is right on that cusp of 10,000 square feet. This building is easy for a couple of reasons, because it's bigger and it has this site restriction. So this is well over that 10,000 square foot rule of thumb. So when you start putting in the elevator and a couple sets of stairs, those costs are more easily offset. I have a feeling with that 10,000 square foot, and I haven't run the numbers on a two-level plan, but I think when you start throwing in $60,000 for an elevator and $25,000, $30,000 for a set of stairs, and needing two of them, that you're gonna lose that economy of scale on that 10,000 square foot building in the end.
The second point I was going to make, there are other points I could make in response to your observations about the added cost, but I won't go there. Pragmatically, in the economic climate that we find ourselves in as a country, as a state, and more particularly as a town, we cannot afford to go forward with two major building projects as is being proposed here, essentially concurrent with one another. If we look at the available resources of the limited number of residents that we have in this community, our tax rate as it is presently is very high, and the people were shocked to death in what happened from the last tax year to the current tax year. And they can't stand any more of that kind of tax shock going forward. So this has got to be approached from the standpoint of the affordability of the community.
Can I interrupt for just a second here? I don't think that they're not the ones to speak to that. I think that the Select Board has a responsibility to put before the legislative body at town meeting a recommendation that we feel is most needed by both our police and fire departments. And, you know, I think that it's going to be up to the legislative body to make the decision on that. I'd also like to invite Mary Crowley to make her point about, you know, building in a bad economy, and she put it much more eloquently than I could. So, Mary, would you please repeat what you said at our last meeting? With, yeah, it wasn't televised, but...
I hear what you're saying, and I know that the affordability of any kind of a public building project is a really important concern. I pay taxes too. Very fond of my neighbors. I know this isn't going to, you know, moving forward with big capital improvements is always a tricky thing for a town to do. However, the state of our economy nationally is not so good. New Hampshire's actually doing pretty well in the midst of all of that. Our county's doing pretty well if you look at unemployment numbers, but mostly money is cheap right now and trade is cheap right now. And it's never easy to say, Jiminy Crickets, we're going to build this big expensive thing, but, you know, I pointed out last week that, you know, we had a governor in this state whose middle name was tax to tax, and moving forward in a core business economy to bond over significant capital expenses is exactly what he did. Money was cheap and trade was cheap, and that's where that whole concept of Page and Drive. So I'm not saying we need to build Page and Drive, but as a community, we're not going to, both of our departments are in disarray, not organizationally, but their buildings are really dreadful, and they have been for years, which is why this has been studied for years. I mean, they were dreadful when it started 15 years ago, and they were dreadful last year, and they're dreadful now. And if we don't do it this year, they'll be dreadful next year. And we're just throwing good money into an old machine instead of maybe considering taking advantage of cheap money and inexpensive trade to affect the needs of our community. So that was basically, I think, what I said. It's not the only argument, it's just one.
I will agree. All of the arguments that Mary has just said have merit, and I concur that the climate is right to get a good price. But I come back to the point I was going to make. You as a select board, I think, have to set priorities as to which of these two projects are of greater importance to this town. I take the position that the fire station, if we're going to consider two independent complexes, is the priority that we should focus on and try and capture the town's support to go forward with that project, conceived as it's been presented to us this evening, as soon as possible, to capitalize on those advantages that Mary speaks of.
And
the police station, I'm very much aware of the facility, its limitations, and its going forward utility. That building, with the improvements that have been made, will sustain us for at least 5 years, and maybe longer.
Well, and again, not to interrupt you, but this was a discussion that the Select Board had, we discussed extensively last week. For a number of reasons, we believe that it is our best choice and our responsibility as a Select Board to put both options before the legislative body. One of the reasons being that if the existing police station can become a temporary housing for the fire department during the construction, we save a significant amount of money in that. And it's just, I think, from an economic standpoint, there are arguments, more arguments to be made in favor of it. But again, we concluded, and we had a unanimous vote of 5 Select Board members, that our responsibility as the governing body is to put the best, what we believe is the best possible choice before the town. The town legislative body can reject that choice, but it's going to be up to the legislative body to make that decision at town meeting. And now what we're trying to do is present the best possible options to meet the needs of both departments. Yes, sir.
Could I also, if that's what we're gonna do, that's fine, and I agree with you, what you just said. I would also suggest that maybe you would present to the town the situation that the schools may be in if we do accept this, because in the next few years, we're gonna get a lot of cost shifting down from the state. And if we bond on to a $6 million project, and all of a sudden, we have to bear the burden of the schools, because we are a receiver town, we're not a donor town, our taxes could go right through the roof. They need to understand that as well.
I agree with that.
Thank you.
You're absolutely right. That is.
I agree with what you said, Mary.
I know, and the trouble is, we're in New Hampshire, and education is funded in a funny way, and we never know from year to year whether we're gonna get money or not get money. So as a community, do we not go forward with something we know we need? Because this might be the year that we don't get money? I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to say what I think we should believe. I just don't think that fear is a really good, fear of an unknown is, to me, not a good way to consider the option.
Well, I'm not trying to instill fear, I'm just trying to instill a little reality. Because let's be honest, we all understand what our country's going through right now with $14 trillion in debt. And we also know that the state right now is almost, $1 billion in debt. So the money's gotta come from somewhere, and it only comes out of our pocket.
At this point, you know, and if there are no further questions about the facilities, Steve?
Can I have a question?
Yeah.
Sure. So, two things. One is, I have the same question about the lobby in the police station. Okay, you get your welfare, all your welfare people coming in to visit in that little tiny cubicle there, and you put in that little dinky lobby, and it just doesn't seem right. Okay.
The welfare office has been moved.
Oh, it has. It's not where it's showed on that.
It's over at the Bridge House.
So we're not going to have it in the police department.
It will not be in the police department.
Okay, so bad assumption. What's going to go in that little block then in that case? Okay. But I do think that, it's a public building. Honestly, right now, I hate going to the police department. You feel like you're going to jail when you go in there.
Have you
got
been
bulletproof glass everywhere, and a little tiny peephole to go and look at somebody, and you feel like, oh man, I must be culpable to go in there.
Steve?
I would like my building to have a more welcoming aspect. Can't we have an actual person available to deal with the public and give it a little more room,
Steve?
like some seats and stuff? Because people are going to be waiting.
Chief Temporino.
I can explain.
Good, please.
We have an airlock, and then we have a good-sized lobby, and then we have a large admin area with glass and reception and window where it's manned all the time, and people can come in and talk to somebody and get greeted. We also have a secure part of the corridor that's going to be open to the public that will allow people to come down if the chief needs to interview parents of a juvenile or whatever the situations may be. So again, it's how things are operated. Yes, the majority of this is not open to the public, but I think that we've really made this a lot more friendly than you think it looks like on paper.
How big is that? So because you got like six doors coming into that lobby, which none of which.
Well, we have a little room here for meetings.
Yeah, I know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 doors. No place for a bench or anything in there. It seems to be like it's
no
too
place
small.
for what?
That's my opinion. It's too small. You guys need to work with it as you like. Okay. My other thing, I would really want to ask you this question about choice because, and this is a question for the select board. I think the interest of the voters is in making a decision, and I see this as 2 decisions. I don't see it as 1 decision.
And the warrant article is being written as 2 decisions.
It is.
Yes.
All right, that's good, because I had understood that it was not. So maybe you want to, is that news, or is that
should
something?
elaborate on that.
Is that something?
It is one warrant article.
It is one warrant article, and I don't have it right in front of me. Do you have it?
Well, that's what I heard was one warrant article.
No. The warrant article without the dollar amounts filled in is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of dollars for the construction and original equipping of a new fire station. Further, to raise and appropriate the sum of X dollars for the construction and original equipping of a new police station. Further, to authorize the issuance of bonds or notes for up to X dollars in accordance with the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes and to determine the rate of interest thereon. So essentially, the dollar amounts will be filled in for both fire and police, and the legislative body will have the opportunity at town meeting, if someone wants to amend an amount down on the floor, it can be changed that night. If the legislative body opts to approve one station and not the other, then it will be simply a question of amending the warrant for the department that they don't choose to go forward to down to zero. If that passes, then that's how the choice will work. And that will be...
I see the possibility, but it sounds awfully convoluted when you could have two warrant articles and two bond issues, basically, because, you know, this thing, the value, you're going to have a bond, you're going to have a secret ballot for the bond. And so at some point, this has to become an accepted warrant article. You can't amend it in part and take a vote on the whole thing. You have to go, you're going to vote on an amended article, and then you're going to, if somebody wants, let's say somebody wants to get rid of the fire station and only vote on the police station. So they vote to amend the police station out, and we do a vote on that. Now that eliminates the possibility of people who may want to want the police station but not the fire station are voting positively on it. It seems like it's be simple, much simpler and more understandable to the public, and give them why put them through this Robert Rules of Order agony to get what they want, when you could easily put the two warrant articles out as separate warrants, and each one stands on its own. And then, of course, you know, since the number will be higher, if the two projects go through together, since the number will be higher than it actually will, you just don't spend the money when you come to actually do the project because of the what do you call it? The
economies of scale.
Thank you. Efficiency. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, Steve.
So that's my suggestion about how that would be best done for.
Thank you for that
all
suggestion.
concerned.
I thank you, and we can consider that, certainly. Yes, sir.
I have one other question about the funding. Being as Steve brought up the money in the article and all that other stuff. Last year at town meeting, when they wanted to push it through last year, I stood up and I will probably do the same again this year. If in fact the university is all on board with increasing their capital contribution to the town to help us fund this building, or both buildings, or whatever the case may be. Has the Board of Selectmen approached the university to see if they might consider increasing their capital funding to the fire department or the police? They don't give anything to the police department as far as capital, but the fire department, for example, to help us bear the cost of this building, at least the fire department part of it.
We have been in discussion with the university. Our agreement with the university currently is, you know, it has gone up every year. This year it's $585,000 that they are, $583, that they're contributing to the town, and the percentage of that's actually going to the capital for the fire department. Paul, do you have an exact figure on that?
28% of the fire department's budget.
That's for the operating cost. What about the capital? 70,000 still? Yeah, so that, in other words, when I'm talking about, this would be a capital expenditure, really probably, I mean, it's gonna be more than over 20 years or 15 or whatever. So I would hope that maybe the board would suggest the university would increase that capital contribution, because the capital contribution that they give us now is basically for the ladder truck, which I hope that they realize that the town appreciates. I didn't see it in the paper this week that anybody had commented that the university helped with the capital cost of that beautiful ladder truck that we have now. But I, as a citizen, will personally thank them anyway for their contribution. But, I mean, that's what I'm talking about, because it takes a long time, having sat in where you are, Valerie, it takes a long time to talk to the university, because we have to go through different steps and phases. So if we approve this as a town this year, without a definite, yes, we'll buy into so much of this fire department by increasing the capital cost contribution to the town, then they may not feel the necessity to give us any money.
Well, we are in ongoing discussions with the university.
I want to raise another consideration as it relates to the fire station as it involves the university. Steam heat is available from the college, and the location of the fire station being where it is could conceivably make use of that as an energy source if the university were willing to put us on their line. And that would go a long way towards reducing some initial costs, but more importantly, recurring costs over the 50-year or more life of this station. First point. Second point is, I'll remind this board that when I was sitting as a select person where you people are sitting today, I started a dialogue with the university executive level people relative to a public safety building, with the intent, as expressed to them right at the outset, of getting the university, or then the college, to participate in the capital expense that was going to go into such a complex, whether it was a single structure such as this is for the fire department, or whether it was a joint complex for both public safety departments. We carried on that dialogue for a period of about 6 months to 8 months till I stepped down from the board. We had a good dialogue started at that time, and I don't get a sense that there's been any real dialogue since that time, say for what may have occurred during the discussion of the current contract that's been extended, if at all. And you may know or not know about that since you were involved in that contract. But as far as I, as a resident of this community, and I think many other residents of this community, this facility is by and large to support the safety needs of the university. And they should have at least a 50% capital investment in whatever the cost of this fire station complex turns out to be. And I would hope that you as a board are committed to get a commitment from them that can be presented to the voters of this community to convince them that they will participate in some way, shape, or form in underwriting the capital cost of this facility.
As I said, the discussions are ongoing, and we are hoping to have that for town meeting. Yes.
Question. As far as the capital expenses for the fire facility, and the you said that the university so far has pledged $70,000. Is there
$70,000 per year.
Per year? Is there a formal equation or some type of formula that was used to reach that number?
Yes, there was. The cost of the ladder truck over so many years, we figured out what a new ladder truck would cost and what we believed as a town would be fair for them to contribute as well as us to contribute. That's how we came up with it. And as far as answering Bill's question, The contract bill was up in 2000. So the negotiations, I don't know where they're at according to the chair here. I guess they've started, which is a good sign. That's very good. I'm glad.
And the contract was, we extended the contract, so it was up, but we've extended the contract, and it has still resulted in an increase in the money the university contributes to the town, because there's a built-in clause for a percentage increase.
Oh, I know.
So.
I know that. Yes, well, thank you.
Could you tell us what the tax impact of the project, total project, or the two parts are, and then after you give us that information, I think my next question is going to be extra cost to deliver service to the ground for our residents of town. In what way does it increase the value of the services delivered to us in the community?
Well, you've got the...
At the current bond rates, a 20-year bond would be $1.43 impact.
That's a total?
A 15-year bond would be $1.60.
Based on what number?
6.4. 6.4 to 6.5.
And put that in everyday terms, you know, like what would be, we have an average residential valuation in this town. Is it, what's the average residence valued at?
Assessment?
200,000?
I think it's around 200,000.
200,000.
Is that with both buildings?
Yes.
Six and a half.
No, that's built together.
What if you split them in just in the fire department? Do you have that by any chance?
I don't have an amortization table on that phone.
Well,
You can do a percentage. It's just kind of, if you want to say they're in half, it will be half that amount.
Yeah, okay.
The bond's not going to change.
So it would be, instead of $1 and some change, it'd be a little, probably
75 cents. It was
$0.75.
75 up to 90 cents.
As far as the second half of your question goes, I'm not, I think that I think it was clear at last year's town meeting, and it has been clear for many years, that, you know, the town has a responsibility to provide its fire department and police department with a headquarters that are safe and clean and modern and meet their program needs. Is it going to make the fire trucks go faster and get to fires or emergencies quicker? You know, probably not, but we're going to have firemen who are living in a healthy and clean environment. And I think that we've got a responsibility, and the same for the police department. I mean, the town has a responsibility to make sure that our employees are working under decent conditions. Does that also improve efficiency and morale and everything else within the departments? Of course it does, and that's an intangible benefit, but I think it's equally important.
Are there any operational savings from the?
That's going to be, I have to defer to the chiefs to answer on those. That casino?
Or are there any operational increase? I mean, you've got a lot bigger facility here, so presumably it's not going to, I mean, presumably it's going to be possibly higher costs than the current one.
I think your energy costs will probably be down.
Energy costs are going to go way down.
Way down?
The larger building's going to cost less to maintain than the present one, for sure. Your impact on taxes would be about, for a $200,000 house and a 15-year bond for the whole thing, would be about $320. For one or the other half or less than half.
So my only statement about 300, I mean, I think we should think in terms of $350, $320 is whatever, and my question really comes down to, are we getting $320 times 15 years worth of extra service on the ground? And is that worth what we're doing here? And I understand that it's nice to give clean and safe, you know. Clean should be the matter of the fire department to do it, or the police department to do it. They can keep it clean themselves. Safe, we have to address those issues. Can we do it in the existing building? I don't know. I mean, if we can't, then okay, that's an excellent case for this. I mean, is there something in between? I don't know. I just, at this point, what I'm looking at is, okay, a big number and a substantial impact on taxes for businesses and residents alike, and on both. So, you know, so to me, this looks like, you know, $1,500 to $2,000 a year more taxes. That's significant, and other folks in the town will be doing the same. So I would like to be sure I'm getting value for the money, and that we are, in fact, we have the plan that is going to hold us, you know, do those things that we're talking about, provide efficiency and the best delivery of service. I think the location is perfect. I mean, this is the right thing, and I'm talking about the fire department now. But I think, and it's got to be there or close by. And honestly, if it took another year to get this thing done right, it would be okay with me, because I think that we did something with the lot line, but that's another issue. Anyway, we'll let Bill talk.
Isn't that a 50-year building, Madam Chairman?
They've indicated it's a 50 to a 75-year building.
So it's not a 10 or 15 years. It's going to last longer than that.
Well, I'm just talking about me.
No, I understand, but I mean, you prorated over 50 years. That's the cost for you.
Thanks, Valerie. Steve, one thing we haven't really talked about, the committee didn't talk about it because it was not our challenge. Right. But there are a lot of things that can be done. There are cost drivers to anything that you do, you know, building a building, buying equipment, hiring people. There's a lot of things that could be done. It would require some change. It would require approaching our safety services a little bit different. This town has 3,000 residents and 3,000 to 4,000 transients. The college students that come and they go in 8 or 9 months. There's not many towns in the state of New Hampshire, and I've thrown that challenge out once before, or twice before, that has a full-time 24/7 fire department in the town. They don't have it because they can't afford it. What we found during the process here was that, and we knew it all along, was that the basic cost of operating the fire department is not fighting fires and doing the business of fire prevention and suppression. It's running the ambulance. 80 to 90% of the activity is ambulance runs. We could split the two. We could split the ambulance. We've never talked about it, but it's been thought about. We could split it. Make the ambulance service separate. It would be a lot. You could build a really, really nice ambulance facility at 42 Highland Street. Plenty of room. You need a couple ambulance bays, a little bit of dormitory space. One of my thoughts was that ever since Buddy left, Buddy Tebow, Chief Tebow, Plymouth ambulance covered the whole area. Campton, Rumney, Dorchester, Ashland, Holderness. We don't do that anymore, not to that extent. Some of the towns are pulling away. It would be nice to have all of those communities come together, the boards of selectmen come together and develop an ambulance, a regional ambulance service, let all the towns participate and all the towns fund it equally and operate it as a business. And you can break even. And those costs sort of offset themselves. As far as the fire department, maybe we don't need 24/7. Maybe we could do business hours only. and the rest of the hours will call. But as far as what you see here on the ground, I don't think there'll be a difference at all. I mean, it'll be business as usual and it'll be good, but that's what it is. The only way you're gonna reduce this is to change the way we do business today.
Thank you.
Casino?
I'd just like to speak on a couple of points that Dick made. It's not 90% of our business. The split is more like 60-40, fire versus EMS. And the calls that we're getting now, we seem to be getting only some of the full-timers come back for these calls. And if we went down that road, you would see a lot of unanswered calls going on. And if you don't believe me, you can check with the deputy. The problem we're having is the call force around is dropping off. And that's not just this town, it's a widespread problem. People that do have jobs, they're gone. They leave in the middle of the day, and at night when they're there, their family don't want to see them. And as far as losing the other towns, we're still doing the same amount of calls now than when years ago when we had Campbellville and all the other surrounding towns. So the calls for service, we've dropped down, but the calls of service has maintained. It's a very busy department, third busiest in Lake Street Mutual Aid. And you hear a lot of call towns that only do 200 or 300 calls. They keep getting retone. And we're up in the 500-600 range just within town with the fire along counting the EMS calls.
Thank you, Casino.
Could we have Casino explain how do we have some towns that we're in contract with on that, and are those long-term contracts, and how would we amortize any of the cost of this facility by charging them for those sending towns for it? I mean, are we going to recoup any of our capital costs in that way, or could we?
Casino, you can explain the formula, but the answer in a nutshell is yes.
The ambulance service does make money with contracts. The towns will pay us a certain amount of money to contract the ambulance for the year, and then we charge the individual patients for the transports that we do. So we get that money in, and that money goes into the general fund, and then that goes to wherever it needs to go to. I guess that's...
And the ambulance fees or the contract fees to the towns are based on a per capita formula. So, you know, depending on how many people live in a town, they pay a basic rate to the town of Plymouth that's calculated based on that. The fees, the contracts have been annual contracts. In fact, just this evening, we had a meeting with some selectmen from Holderness and their town administrator. They want to get involved in a 3-year contract with us for the service. So it is a, you know, it's a source of revenue for the town.
I guess my question is whether or not if our price goes up, whether it becomes a non-source of revenue for the town because of the capital cost of this thing. I mean, I'm just wondering whether we are putting ourselves at possible risk of losing revenue because we're going to try to pass some of the costs along to them, and they're not going to accept this to do something else, or there's competition out there, or whatever. I mean, I hear some of that rumbling from Ashland folks because they work with me, but I don't know about other towns.
There's always a balance between people being willing to continue to pay and not. Mr. Kelly?
I just have a couple of questions. Number one, what is the percentage of calls, both fire and ambulance, of the college community compared to the permanent, regular residents of Plymouth? I looked at a schedule short time ago, and I could see time after time after time after time, Exton, number, Russell Street, Russell Street, Russell Street, Lanyon Street, Lanyon Street, Lanyon Street. But the college only pays in $70,000 for our ambulance, and as I understand it, ambulance. And
No, John, you're wrong. The college pays per capita on ambulance.
They pay
On 2155.
and 70,000 for the fire.
But as far as those numbers of calls, Casino, do you have?
Roughly 10%.
10% to the,
College related.
and that's both fire and ambulance?
But if it's 10% that they pay in the calls, 70%.
No, 10% of the calls, both fire and ambulance, are college. Yes.
I want to go back to the figures that Paul mentioned as far as bonding for these projects, and focus again on the fire department project as a standalone, which was cited to be somewhere in the range of $3.4 million. Half of that, if it were to be cost shared by the university, would be $1.7 million. Using the numbers that you put forth, Paul, if the university were to add to their contract payments to the town $125,000 to $150,000 a year over the 15-year period, they could cover half the cost of the building. I say that because in terms of you as a select board, you should be striving for that kind of a capital infusion from the university annually to cover 50% of that fire station cost, using the figures quoted as an example of what we need.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions?
As far as the PD goes, I'm not clear. Is there a number that the university has pledged towards the construction of the new PD facility? No?
No.
Okay, and so I suppose, Chief, I understand that the university has their own PD facility, but speaking as a former local peace officer, I'm correct in understanding that the university utilizes your building, correct?
Yes.
They utilize your holding facilities, telephone lines, paperwork, that stuff, computers.
They utilize our holding facility.
Holding
They have
facilities.
their own phone lines, they have their own office downtown.
Sure,
Yeah,
I understand
no.
that, as a former PSU student as well. But they do utilize the PD facility itself.
Yes.
The bays, what have you. So it seemed to me as though it's not unreasonable for the select board to approach the university as well for some contribution from the town, being that they do utilize the facility. Speaking to the national climate, and as a young person with a family raising a 17-year-old, fear is reality these days. And, you know, people are strapped, people are concerned, and it's reality. And I believe everything should be every step and effort should be made to get the maximum contribution from the university, obviously in order to offset the cost to the 3,000 annual residents.
Just have to step in and point out that the university does not charge the town for the substantial commerce that it brings to all our local businesses. You know, it's a two-way street. We got the population of the college coming and using our restaurants and our gas stations, and you know that they are an integral and significant part of the buying public and the commercial activity of this town. So just slicing it down the middle and saying they should pay half or they should pay this or that. I mean, certainly anything that the university can do to help the town with this project is wonderful, but it too is a public institution. It too is threatened financially and has budget problems of its own. So I think we need to be pretty realistic about what the ability of state funding for education isn't a whole lot better at the higher level than it is at the elementary school level. So
And
I think we need to keep that in mind when we talk about the college should do this, the college should do that, the college should do this, the college should do that, because they bring all these people and they cost all this money But they bring us a lot of money too.
They do. And if I could just, add to that, we've got, businesses in town that succeed because they have university students and faculty and staff who are patronizing their businesses. We have restaurants that are succeeding because kids go out to eat and parents come to town. The tax, the businesses are paying taxes. I mean, if the university I agree with Mary. I think that's a huge part of the equation that we do have to keep in mind.
And I'm not saying 50%, I am saying maximum contribution. As a residential taxpayer, we already take some of the burden because the university is an academic institution in our tax rate as it is. So.
I'm not sure whether this gentleman realizes it or not, but the prosecutor is paid for by the university.
Right. The prosecutor's salary is paid for by the university and the police department, so they are actually making a huge contribution to the police department. All right, if there are, yes.
I'm Art Cody, I'm a member of the committee, and I just want to address this gentleman's question about sort of increased services. I want to take it from the reverse side as a fairly new resident of the community, but one whose profession was in the fire protection engineering arena. The current state of the fire department is really pretty deplorable. It is extremely overcrowded, and it's a grossly outdated facility. The way community fire services are judged, they're judged by an organization called the Insurance Services Organization, ISO. They come in and judge essentially on 3 factors: water supply, fire alarm, and fire department. The grading that they establish for cities and towns establishes the starting point for fire insurance rates. I believe that if something isn't done to improve the fire facilities for Plymouth, there's a very good chance that ISO could come in and downgrade the community, which would affect the fire insurance rates for the entire town. I don't know that for a fact, but I do know the factors that are involved, and this department is, the facility is just not very good at all.
Thank you, Art. All right. Tim.
I just one little closing comment. I've been listening. One of our goals, I think, for all of us was to hear input, and I just want to applaud the select board and thank our friends here who presented tonight, because the one thing that really has not been criticized to any degree is placement and location of facilities, and I think that's a major shift from where we were last year, that we have studied very hard this year the activity demands of the department, the real future look of what Plymouth might look like, and have come to a different set of conclusions from a year ago. That it's nice that it happens to save some money as well, but I think that everyone should be applauded, I think, for those efforts in that direction. We can all debate the finer points of how a building looks and sits and what a space is used for, but it's a wonderful accomplishment to not be debating the underlying philosophies of where the buildings are placed and whether it meets the needs of the community. So congratulations to all on that.
Thank you.
And to our committee.
Yes.
Thank you. And just before we close this public hearing, I'd just like to remind everybody that next Monday we do have a work session to further discuss the fire and police departments.
And it's Thursday night after the reading of the regular budget.
This Thursday also after the budget hearing.
We'll televise next Monday's meeting.
We'll be, so, and people are welcome to attend. We'll be televising the work session next Monday, so it will also be available on PB Cam for anyone who wants to listen but can't be here. So thank you very much, and this closes our public hearing.
We're here Thursday. You want us here Thursday and Monday and the 7th?
Non-public. Thank you, Art.
I don't think we want to talk about those doors. We gotta sort of sneak up. A big photo, so we get the right idea.
You still on TV?
Huh?
Still on TV?
Probably.
Or you were really thinking about the national line item for this, but any kind of.
Monday, the 31st.
I don't know what it should be. So there could be,
Thursday,
I don't know for
November
sure.
3rd.
Doesn't have to do with this.
Everybody thinks the college is a bottomless pit.
what we did.
Pick it up, but we gave them a better option, because now they can vote it apart.
When are we gonna put the swimming pool in the town?
Whenever they vote on it.
I used to work in New York at the Seagram's building.
At the what?
Seagram,
Oh,
Seagram, right across the American Express, and it had, the building sat way back on.
He's that good. He was in my view with my daughter, and I...
University, and thank you for sharing. It's like, okay, we're going to pay for half the building over 10% of the cost.
Well, I had Tim Keith paying 50% of it.
Hey, you might want to take off that big PSU.
I don't know, I
Microphone's right.
You're not live.
You're not.
Yes, you are.
No.
you hope not.
No.
All right, thanks, guys, good
We
night.
said we were off the air.
No, I did not.
It's still on.
It's still on.
No, he said we were off the air.
Well, now that
You have to move to go into
the
non-public.
public has left the room, do I have a motion to return to non-public?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 We are back to non-public.